There we go.
Thank you very
Over
much,
to you, Jane.
Alice. Right, morning everybody. Yes, I'm Jane Ainsworth. I work at the University of Leicester in the School of Archaeology and Ancient History for Classics for All. So I'm the East Midlands hub manager for that. Before that, I was a teacher for 12 years. So I am coming with some concept of what real life is like. What you've got on the screen, and I hope what Gronya has sent to you as well. Let's go to full screen. Actually, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Rather than just looking at the sides of things. There we go. You can click on the image in the PowerPoint, and it will take you to further information about the course. But you've also got that as the handout that hopefully you all received yesterday. Please do put questions in the chat as I go through, especially as there's it's a small number of people. I'm very happy to pick those up as I go through. Although whether they'll, yes, they should appear. That should be fine. Yes, you've got details about where you can find the course. So what I'll do initially is just tell you about the course and where you can get the information, and then think about why you might want to use it, why it's different, why it adds value to your curriculum. Hopefully we'll have time to do a quick little exercise to give you an idea of how things go, and then I'll run through what you get in the pack. If you click on that link, you will find a list of the topics that are covered in this course. And it's worth saying that, making clear from the start, that there are two versions of this course, one for Key Stage 2, which is years 3 to 6, so primary school pupils, and one for Key Stage 3, which is years 7 to 9, so pupils aged 11 to 14. When you go onto the website that I've given you the link to, you will only find samples of the Key Stage 2 material. So if you want the Key Stage 3 material, you're going to have to get in touch with us in order to do so. So Life in the Roman World is a course that you can use to teach ancient history at Key Stage 3. But I would really strongly emphasize the flexibility of this course, that it can fit in a number of places into the curriculum. And in fact, the way that this was developed was that initially this was some of these tasks were for clubs that we ran in the local area to the university, where we were looking at both Roman Britain and Latin as an introduction. And these tasks come from the initial task that I did for that, which is based on objects from Roman Leicester and characters that we've developed from those objects. That in turn led to the book Life in the Roman World, and I'll show you later where you can get a look at that. And the book tells the story of a Roman town in Roman Britain right from the late Iron Age all the way through to the early Anglo-Saxon period. So if you want to use it as a sort of a chronological version of events, then you can, but you don't have to. Some of our schools use it as a module in their Key Stage 3 history curriculum, as part of the pre-1066 module that you can do at Key Stage 3 in the national curriculum. But equally, it would fit into your Key Stage 3 Latin curriculum, and I'll come back to that later on. It could be a club if you're running extracurricular classics clubs, if you're maybe running something in years 7 and 8 in order to raise awareness of the subject as an option at GCSE, for example. And in fact, one of our sessions, our session on Roman curses, I'm going to run with a club just like that tomorrow in Nottingham. And just to raise awareness of a couple of ways in which you can accredit your learning using any of the tasks in the pack. There are national awards, for example, the Olympus Challenge that Classics for All runs, and also competitions like the Young Historian Award. And we can either put some links in the chat about those, or just get in touch with us to find out more about those. But it's really valuable to get that external accreditation for your pupils' work. They value it really highly. Their parents value it really highly. But also it's a good thing for the schools to put on their social media to raise awareness of what they're doing and what the curriculum is at the school. So why would you use Life in the Roman World? What's different about it? What's going to add value to your course? The vast majority of ancient history courses, by necessity and definition, do focus on written sources. That, of course, means that you are not looking at about 95% of the population. You are almost always excluding women. You are definitely excluding children. And you're looking at the views of the urban elite. So what we've got with Life in the Roman World is an opportunity to really look at the whole of the society in a bottom-up way. And as we decolonize the curriculum, which is absolutely crucial, we've got the opportunity to look at the different experiences of the characters that you can see on the screen, who we've created from the objects that you can see on the screen here. And the way we do that is by focusing on not simply written sources, but material culture, the objects that were found in the city, and how we can use a framework of questions to add more value in that way. Thanks, Alice. Alice is adding some of the links for the competitions in the chat for you. Another reason that you might want to use these resources is that you can fit them into your curriculum, and you can fit them to your local history. And of course, local history is a key part of the national curriculum. And I'll show you later some opportunities for you to swap. And we are not precious. Well, I must emphasize this. We are not precious about these resources. If you have got a mosaic closer to you that is going to work better than the examples we have used, then use it. And I will show you how you can use local inscriptions to you, local objects to you, to adapt this so that it fits your local history remit. So we've got a mix of activities that are tied together by the objects and the characters. And that allows us to give a really broad cross-curricular approach to learning. And if you look at the book, and we've got a link to that as well. This is the title page from one of the PowerPoints that we'll come back to later. But if you click on the left-hand side of the screen there, it will take you straight to the book. And you'll find in the book that it has little narrative stories at the start of each chapter, which take you through from the Iron Age to the end of the Anglo-Saxon period. And so using that and using the artwork, we've got a really cross-curricular approach to learning here. Final reason, or final thing just to throw into the mix here, we have worked with Tufts University with their digital humanities department, and a lot of the tasks here are work-based, and they're using digital resources, digital databases to help the pupils with their digital literacy to use digital tools effectively, rather than just simply grabbing at the first thing that they see. So that work-based approach that obviously links into Gatsby benchmarks is really crucial for what's going on. The final thing that I'd mention is, if you are teaching Latin as well, you'll find when you look through the book that if you know Cambridge Latin course and you know the new version of Cambridge Latin course, some material will look familiar. That's because they're using our examples, things like the Hallison helmet, for example, are at the core of some of the things that we're doing. So there is an appendix to the teacher resource guidance, teacher resource handbook even, which tells you how each topic links into the Cambridge Latin course. So you can use the tasks here to work with CLC. Why, if you are not in Leicester, would you want to use Roman Leicester? Well, one of the reasons you can see on the slide here is that the yellow dots on that image are the town walls, the Roman and the medieval town walls of Leicester. Everything in red we have excavated. So where that graphic says 15%, it's gone up since then. We know more about Leicester as a Roman city than we do of any other Roman city in the country. So I won't say it's our Pompeii, because it isn't, in terms of standing buildings and all of that, but in terms of how much we know about the city, why wouldn't you use the city that has the most evidence from it? I think time-wise, what I would like to do is give you a little task to do, and these are the objects and the characters that you were sent details of yesterday. And what I would do is go through and say to you that there are 3 key places in the programme in Leicester that you need to look at. One is the Vine Street house at the top here. One is the Forum, which 1960s planners helpfully drove a dual carriageway through. So we're only just redeveloping what we can find there. And the rest is the town generally. And what you would do is you would link this in to these Christopher's back, marvellous. We have our 7 characters there, and they introduce themselves, and I would get you to link the character to where they're found, and it tells you at the top where they are in the Latin. So you can see these 2 are in the Forum, these 2 are somewhere in the town, and then the other 3 are in the house. And then I would get you to work out from the object cards where each of these objects were found, and then you would work out how we've got each character from each of the objects. But given that we've only got 10 minutes, I don't think in reality we're going to be able to do that. So I will just briefly give you the answers. But what I would explain is that what underpins this course is these frameworks of questions that we give you as to how to ask questions about individual sources. And by asking questions about these individual sources, we can reach some really fundamental conclusions about what it was like to live in Roman Leicester. And I put in my abstract this idea of the wet Tuesday morning rule, which is my supervisor's rule about how ancient history should work. And that is, what was it really like on a wet Tuesday morning? in any particular place. And it's the objects that really give us these answers. You will find these, you've got these frameworks of questions because they were sent out yesterday, but they also reappear in all of the PowerPoints that accompany the resources. So, for example, we would talk about the fact we would find that primus here on the top left of the screen comes from this hypercourse tile, which you can see says primus fake it, and then an X for 10. And one of the questions we always ask, and is absolutely crucial whenever you are looking at an ancient object, how was it made? And we can see here that it was made by him probably scratching with his fingers these letters. And therefore what we've got is an enslaved person writing in Latin, using the correct perfect tense there of facio, fake it. But in Leicester, he is recording how many hypercourse tiles he has made, but he's recording that in Latin. Another example of how these objects give insights is the object that gives us Lucius and Verecunda here. And that, you can see that they're both, in the pictures, they're both wearing a little necklace. And this is the object that would have been in the necklace, which says Verecunda Lydia, and we think Lydia means some kind of dancing girl, Lucius gladiator. And on the face of it, what we've got here is a love token, the equivalent of a love lock, which these two characters would have worn to show that they were in a relationship. And if we ask these questions about what does this tell us about the society in which they lived, if we think about it, both these characters would have been enslaved. Enslaved people weren't allowed to get married. They weren't allowed to have official relationships. This little bit of pot with their names scratched onto it might be the only visible sign that anybody had that these two people were in a relationship. And I think that gives a real insight into what it was like to be enslaved on a day-to-day basis in the Roman world. It's not things that we take for granted, the ability to have a relationship and have that recorded and have the world know about it. That's not something that it was possible for these people to do. Marcus is our centurion, and we know that from the seal impressions on the right-hand side of the screen there, that he served in a couple of Roman legions. And we think that, and these lead seals were found in this major townhouse in Vine Street, from which we have the curse tablet that you can see at the top right of the screen there. And this curse tablet, again, when you start asking questions about who made it and which language was it written in, this curse tablet is written in Latin. I'll give you the text there and go back to that slide. It's written in Latin, but it is written to a local god, Maglus. We have no other evidence for the god Maglus in the whole of Roman civilization. So we have an enslaved person because he lives in the slave quarters, this word, pedagogium. We have an enslaved person in Leicester writing in Latin, which suggests that he's writing, therefore he's had some education. But he's had education in the Latin language, not the language that people might have been speaking around him. He's dedicating this curse tablet, which is a Roman practice, but it's to a British god, Maglus. And then when we've got this wonderful list of names, which effectively is the enslaved contingent in this Vine Street house, and we can see from their names that they come from different areas within the empire. Nigella there, the Latin means little black girl, and that suggests, along with the isotopic evidence that we have from Leicester, that we've got enslaved people from and free people actually who grew up in North Africa. So there's all these insights that these objects provide into the everyday life of the Roman world. And we use these characters as the starting point to look into them in more detail with the different tasks that are in the packet. Now, as I say, if you want to make this your local Roman history, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. So you don't have to use the objects that we've got here. You can swap in objects from your local area. You can find objects from your local area using the Portable Antiquities scheme. So we've got the link there on the screen, and there's a postcode search on that facility, which means you can search for within 1 kilometre or 3 kilometres or 5 kilometres of your local area and find objects about which you can ask the same questions that we've been asking about these ones. If you want more inscribed objects, then a similar tool is to go to the Roman Inscriptions of Britain page. We've got the link there at the bottom. And again, you can search there by county, or you can search by site and look for the different inscriptions and look for the characters that you can surmise from those inscriptions. So just to round up really quickly, what you get in the pack is a set of the textbooks, the Life in the Roman World textbooks. All of this is free. You get a document called the Teacher Resource Document, which has got all the information you will need for teachers and suggested activities for each chapter. And as I said, it's got that appendix that links both to the national curriculum in terms of the history, aims and content, but also links to Cambridge Latin course. For each chapter of the book, the resources are split up by chapter. For each chapter, there's a PowerPoint presentation, and there's more notes there in presenter format. I tried to anticipate the questions that the most irritating Year 8 child could ask, and put the answers in there for you. We do have Latin word roots exercises because that really adds value to the pupils' understanding and their oracy skills. There's what is actually proving an increasingly useful document, not simply for teaching Key Stage 3, but across your ancient history teaching. The online resource document has got, which we produced with Tufts University, has got links to all sorts of useful databases and suggestions on how to use it. So that's worth a look. And then there's also a second book which focuses on the Iron Age Roman site at Hallerton called Hoards, Hounds and Helmets, which you get in the pack. If you want your pupils to ask us questions, or you want to ask us questions, there's our email address, acccorey@le.ac.uk. Corey is our rat, who you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, and he will answer your questions. We've actually got a live chat thing on the university website though, where you can live chat with Corey the rat, which I'm almost certain that I can use. In practice, email me first to check that I'm actually available to answer those questions at the time you want me to be, because I don't work 5 days a week. There are a few workshops we can offer you too. There's an example of the word roots exercises. And just to finish off with examples of some of the tasks that we have in the pack, as I say, they are deliberately cross-curricular. So here's an example where you're using creative writing, for example, to think about the Mithraeum and the study of Mithras and mystery temples. And I've put on the screen examples of what you get from the PowerPoint. The arrows point to those presenter view notes for irritating Year 8 questions that I mentioned just now. But there's all sorts of different tasks. There's a summary of those on the screen on the right-hand side, some of which have been digitized, as I say. So, for example, the 7.2 source analysis question that I've given you on the left-hand side of the screen there. But I'm particularly pleased with the CSI group of questions, group of tasks that we did, where we're looking at the osteological and the pathology evidence from the cemeteries in Roman Leicester. So we're not just making what might be the obvious historical cross-curricular links, perhaps with English tasks or with or even with DT tasks, but we're looking at giving pupils an introduction to the scientific evidence as well, and how you can look at it. If, like me, you are scientifically illiterate, do not panic. These were written by somebody who is scientifically illiterate, and therefore we have tried to make this as entry level as possible. And there's lots of support so that you do know and you are confident in being able to teach that. The word roots exercise for the chapter, the first chapter in which those CSI tasks appear, include some of the word roots that you would use. So pathology, for example, it's got pathos, it's got logos in there, for you to support your pupils' understanding of these new and difficult words. So I will leave that screen there because it has got on there 2 key places for you to look. It's got the Roman Leicester website with the page about the resources at the top in red, and it's also got our email address, which is acccorey@le.ac.uk. If you would like the resources, you should have been sent the application form with the how we use your data bits and bobs. Please fill that in and send it to us at that email address, and then we will send the pack out to you. If you didn't get the form, then just email us at that anyway, and I will send it out to you that way. We might have about a minute for questions, but at least I got everything in today. So I hope that's been useful, and do shout if there are any questions either now or to the email address.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jane.